So the last video we want to make about the June 2023 Housing Committee was a question around the kind of the building of affordable housing. And it's kind of, it links back to previous questions we've asked in previous housing committees. And so it was a guy called Tom who asked this one, who's kind of like, it's been really kind of cool in terms of just getting his head around affordable housing and kind of what it all is. Because just to make the point, you can, I think the weird thing is everyone agrees that there's not enough housing to go around. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. And yet we're still kind of talking about all these kind of weird and wacky schemes to end homelessness that don't involve having enough housing. It's insane, but that's the sector we work in. So yeah, in terms of our big picture aims for Bedford is, I think for the kind of the organising, the citizens of Bedford kind of stuff is that, we want to work out what we can do and then go and do it in terms of making sure enough housing's built and enough affordable housing's built. And I would, potentially, I don't really, in one sense, it doesn't really matter if it's affordable or not, if enough housing's been built, because it's not been built. But in the short term, it does. It makes a big difference as to whether someone can afford it. So November 2022, Mayor Hodgson, so the previous mayor, who was a Lib Dem, he'd responded to one of our previous questions and basically said Bedford Borough was the fastest growing borough in the fastest growing region, and essentially he admitted that the 30% target quota of how many affordable housing is built was actually more like 22 or 23%, which equates to hundreds of properties every year. I think he actually gave a figure. He even said it: 130 properties a year are not affordable, and they should be. And so, that was kind of, that sort of set the scene for this question. Now we've got a new mayor now, new housing committee, but so in one sense we're kind of linking the work in with the previous one we did. And the ultimate question was, what steps are the council taking to meet this 30% quota? Because I hear it a lot with the housing committee over the years. It's kind of, they'll tell you the reasons why they can't possibly make a change, and it's like, we know it's difficult, we get that, but still, what are you doing? So in this case, what are you doing? There's lots of reasons why it's difficult to hit that 30% quota, but what are you doing about it nonetheless? And you've written out what the answer was. It was quite a long answer, but essentially, if I can try and summarise what I think the answer was from the council, is kind of saying that, well, first of all, the 30% target is from the local plan, and it, in one sense, different areas have different amounts. Because another thing the mayor said was, Mayor Hodgson said was, we need to find out how these other areas are achieving higher percentages, because he kind of said, Bedford could do better. So the answer in this case was, first of all, that some different areas have different amounts, but there are also genuine problems that councils have, because when you've got smaller developments, they don't have to have the 30% quota at all. So developers are obviously pushing to not have affordable housing at all because they don't make as much money from it. So apparently what often can happen is they have this 30% quota, they'll go and start the work and say, we've hit a snag, we can't afford to make all these affordable houses now, so we're going to not do that. So that's the kind of the one, many of the problems they have. And they've acknowledged that the Wixhams, which is it's a small town pretty much in the south of Bedford now, it's vast. I drove across it a few weeks back, I got lost. Vast, it's huge. There's thousands of houses being built there. And what they did say in Bedford was that the committee was that they're achieving 35%. Now, there's so many kind of caveats and so much small print with that. I don't know what impact that has on the wider borough, but it's certainly a good thing. But yeah, in one sense, you listened to the recording, Shannon. I felt like the answer was kind of giving us all the difficulties that they have in order to achieve it, rather than, this is what we could actually do differently. This is what, this is how we could do better. I mean, certainly with the organising stuff we're doing, Citizens UK, in my mind, we might end up kind of doing some kind of action outside Bovis Homes or whatever, just some kind of comedy action to kind of raise a bit of profile of the issue or whatever. So I think, that's something that we could potentially do. But yeah, as I say, Shannon, what else did you pick out from the answer here, or what else do you think was significant?
So yeah, I think it was them trying to be helpful and giving a bit more of a background as to the struggles, and assuming sort of, the general public, and I appreciate that, might not know that other areas have different percentages, because ex-mayor Dave Hodgson did mention about writing to central government in order to get some help on achieving this. So I think that's potentially where the confusion has come in, where we potentially don't understand that different areas have different things, targets to hit. I think there's potentially some good news around, Andrea Spice, the councillor, sort of mentioned about viability assessments. I'm not going to pretend like I understand what one of those looks like, but from my understanding of her answer was essentially, developers do a viability assessment, and it's almost a way of them getting out of the 30% affordable that they have to give. So if they go, oh, it's not viable because inflation's gone up or because price of cement, I don't know. But essentially, they say it's not viable in that report, then the council haven't got a leg to stand on. I think now what they're saying is they're going to introduce independent assessors, to sort of check the validity of those viability assessments. Also, in the next local plan strategy, I believe, they're also going to make those viability assessments at different stages of the developing process, because currently they're just at the beginning. Now, obviously, the climate's changing, housing's changing, everything changes super quickly at the minute. So I think it does make sense to have those assessments at different times. I'll be honest, if I don't sort of see how, it feels like a lot of money is going to be spent into something that seems quite convoluted. It might not be, it might in reality be actually a really good solution. And Councillor Spice definitely spoke sort of quite positively about this, and I think they are focused on it. I think she also mentioned where the smaller developers who sort of just hit under that threshold, I think they're putting a lot of work with the council to make negotiations around, like, look, you don't have to provide this 30%, but we'll throw in this extra take if you do provide a little bit, or something to sweeten the deal, is my understanding. That sort of stuff makes me a little bit nervous, because I'm like, it all sounds a bit like underhand deals, and it's not what you know, it's who you know, and this is a bonus of policies, I guess. Yeah, I think we'll know more with the local plan that's going to come up.
I mean, it's okay. That's more positive than I realised in terms of just kind of reading the answer. So yeah, I mean, this is almost like this is another thing which ideally, I don't know if there's any people watching this for some reason who are like planners or like have experience in planning, but it's obviously like just a rabbit warren and a bit of a labyrinth of law that we haven't got a clue about. So I want, I guess we just don't know whether that viability kind of independent assessment of the viability kind of work is going to be effective or not, or whether the developers will find another way to wriggle out of it. Again, I think it's where people power is important. There's actually been some really high profile situations where private companies have changed policy because of the public perception of them and the public interest in what they're doing. And I think that's an important thing that we as people living in Bedford, we should all be kind of potentially pushing for, is okay, how do we kind of organise and put pressure on those kind of organisations ourselves, because it's not just down to the council, they can do what they can do, but it's down to us as well to kind of actually get a little bit more imaginative, because councils aren't known for being imaginative, let's be honest. They're kind of they've got a lot of things they've got to work within, whereas members of the public can be a little bit more out of the box.
I'd be really interested to know why developers are so keen to not provide that quota. Like, is it purely financial, or it's just financial? Because
if it brings down the if rich people who don't want to live with poor people, they are less willing to pay for it. So you're not only going to sell those the 30% affordable for less money, but potentially it's going to drag down the value of other houses in the development.
That's just not true. Like,
I'm not saying it's true.
It's a stigma.
Yeah.
How old-fashioned is that?
It's one of the many good things that have happened recently, whereas before they just kind of shoved all the affordable housing into one place. They have for some time now, for a couple of decades it seems, mixed up those. So you just don't get those ghettos. You don't get those. You don't get those issues coming up. So it seems to be very effective way of working of planning for for healthy communities, basically. So yeah, I think in terms of this kind of this theme, I know that there's a question going to be asked at the next committee around accessible housing, as in wheelchair friendly housing. And again, it's another area which developers don't like doing. There's a report, a national report out a few years ago about it. But again, it's something, we see it in our work in terms of councils having enough wheelchair accessible temporary accommodation, and then having enough adaptable properties for people to move into, and there's just not enough. So this is, with that question we asked in the last committee around waiting times for people with disabilities, there was a significant extra wait for people. If you've got a disability, you have to wait longer to get housed. That's straightforwardly unlawful. That is something that I'm really glad we asked about, because I'm not sure the council were really kind of aware of it or weren't acting on it anyway. And I'm sure that's going to be kind of another theme that we're going to go with. And I think that the two kind of fit almost kind of well together. So you've got the issue of not enough affordable housing not being built, and not enough accessible housing being built, are both issues which should not be happening. The way it should work is simply not coming into fruition. So